Hi friends, I am Deepak Joshi and I am bringing yet another analysis of a recent update under the Income Tax Act. Now, very recently, the CBDT has issued a circular 17 of 2020 on 29th September 2020, which pertains to certain clarifications on the obligation of TDS on e-commerce transactions. Now, as most of you would know, Finance Act 2020 introduced a new compliance in the form of Section 194O in respect of e-commerce transactions. This obligation of deducting tax at source is coming into effect from 1st October 2020. But there are a lot of issues pertaining to the practical application, interpretation, as well as practical implementation difficulties insofar as Section 194O is concerned. It is in this context that the CBDT has issued the circular 17 of 2020 and has attempted to clarify certain doubts. Before we go to those doubts, let's revisit one of the important components of Section 194O. Obviously, the tax has to be deducted at the rate prescribed under Section 194O, and it has to be deducted at the time of credit or payment to the e-commerce participant by the e-commerce operator. However, there is a TDS obligation on deemed transactions as well, which is covered by the explanation to Section 194O subsection 1, wherein any payment made directly to the purchaser, by the purchaser to the participant shall be deemed to have been paid by the operator, and hence TDS will have to be deducted on such payments. Now, this is also covered by the guideline, and I'll come to it later how the explanation has been dealt by the guideline. However, there is a relaxation with regards to the compliance under Section 194O, and that relaxation is provided under subsection 2 when two conditions are satisfied. First condition is that the gross amount of sales or services by the e-commerce participant who is an individual or an HUF during the previous year should not exceed rupees 5 lakh. And second is that such e-commerce participant has furnished its PAN or Aadhaar number to the e-commerce operator. Section 194O also takes care of the power of the CBDT to issue such guidelines. Subsection 4 clarifies that the guidelines can be issued for the purposes of removing the difficulty. I just want to touch upon one aspect of subsection 5 here, which says that such guidelines shall be binding on the income tax authorities and the e-commerce operator. Now, this is one of those rare provisions where a circular or a guideline issued by CBDT has been made binding on the taxpayer or the person who's responsible for the compliance or the assessee, because it clearly says that it shall be binding on the e-commerce operator. Let's now refer to certain definitions which have been given in the section itself. Since we are dealing with e-commerce, e-commerce has been defined to mean a supply of goods or services or both, including digital products, over digital or electronic network. Now, there are two entities who are participating in this transaction over the digital network. One is the e-commerce participant who is selling its products or services through the digital platform of the e-commerce operator. An e-commerce operator owns, operates, or manages this digital platform for e-commerce. It is important to note that the obligation is only in the cases where sale of goods or provision of services of an e-commerce participant is facilitated by an e-commerce operator through its digital platform, and this has been clarified in the main section itself. Let us now go to the issues that were arising out of the applicability of section 194O and how the present circular 17 of 2020 has dealt with them. Let us first take the simple issue of an e-commerce transaction through a very well-known platform, Amazon. Now, most of us would place an order on Amazon, and Amazon would in turn confirm the order with the e-commerce participant. And in the present case, this person is the e-commerce participant, Amazon is the e-commerce operator, and this person is the buyer. Now, most of us who are buyers would place an order and pay using a payment gateway like Paytm, Google Pay. Now, if you consider this in detail, even Google Pay is providing its digital platform and facilitating the transaction of paying the money to Amazon, and hence it gets covered in the definition of an e-commerce operator. Hence, we can also say that Google Pay is also an e-commerce operator. So when the transaction is taking place between the buyer and Google Pay for the purpose of transfer of sale consideration, the tax department could have argued that at this stage TDS ought to have been deducted by Google Pay when it was paying the money to Amazon. Of course, in the main transaction or the second leg of the transaction, when Amazon is paying the money to the e-commerce participant, TDS will necessarily be deducted by Amazon because of section 194O subsection 1. The issue arose regarding the role of Google Pay and TDS applicability on Google Pay. CBDT has now clarified that such payment gateways will not be required to deduct tax under section 194O if, so there is a condition attached, if the tax has been deducted by the e-commerce operator under section 194O on the same transaction. Now, I have an issue with this clarification which has been given, more so on the framing of the guideline. As we've now discovered, there are two legs to this transaction. One is where the buyer is making payment using the payment gateway, and second, Amazon is remitting the money to the e-commerce participant. Obviously, the first transaction is taking place prior in time to Amazon remitting the money to e-commerce participant, and hence at that stage Google Pay will not be in a position to know whether Amazon has deducted tax on the remittances to the e-commerce participant, and hence this condition may not be strictly satisfied in any case, and hence practically it is advisable that Google Pay or such payment gateways take an undertaking from e-commerce operators like Amazon, etc., that they are complying sufficiently with the TDS obligations under section 194O. Of course, the guideline could have also meant that when Amazon is paying or remitting the money back to the e-commerce participant and it uses any payment gateway for such purposes, then on that transaction TDS will not be deducted. However, this has been left unclear and vague. Much more clarity is needed on this aspect. However, with the first issue that I highlighted, this guideline is a welcome guideline and provides clarity at least on that aspect. Now coming to the second business model, which involves insurance agents or aggregators. Let us take the example of a popular website which is policybazaar.com. Now policybazaar.com is also covered under the definition of e-commerce operator, and when a buyer goes to policybazaar.com, the buyer has the option of browsing through various insurance policies issued by various insurance company. And finally, it selects one of the policies, makes payment to policybazaar.com. Policybazaar.com in turn makes the payment to the insurance company. Now, it may so happen that the insurance is for a multiple periods of time, and for that purpose annual payments are being made directly by the buyer to the insurance company in the subsequent years. The issue arises that whether in such cases this direct payment will also be covered and TDS will have to be deducted by the e-commerce operator even on such direct payments. This becomes more relevant in the context of the explanation to section 194O subsection 1, which deems such transactions to be covered by 194O. Now, as you can see, there is a practical difficulty because the e-commerce operator will not be able to realize as to what point in time the payment has been directly made by the buyer to the insurance company and what is the amount of that payment. So there is an additional compliance burden on the e-commerce operator. To reduce that compliance burden in case of an insurance aggregator or an agent, it has been clarified that in years subsequent to the first year, if the insurance agent or aggregator has no involvement in the transaction between the insurance company and the buyer, then in that case such aggregator would not be liable to deduct tax under section 194O for those subsequent years. One important aspect is that the condition is that the aggregator has no involvement in the transaction. Now, you may recall that this involvement factor is also connected with the condition of facilitation. So, quite clearly, if there is no involvement, there is no facilitation by the e-commerce operator for such transactions, and rightly so, these transactions have been excluded. While making uh, the payment, it is obvious that the insurance company will also pay commission payments to the e-commerce operator. On such commission payments, independent TDS compliance still exists because it is not part of the same transaction, and though TDS will not be deducted under 194O by the insurance company, TDS will have to be deducted under separate sections. Interestingly, this clarification has been restricted only to insurance agents or insurance aggregators. However, there are similar business models, subscription models, periodical models where similar transactions take place. Would this clarification apply even to those business models? The guideline is silent on that aspect and it may lead to further litigation or compliance burden on the e-commerce operators. Let us now move to another issue. As we've discussed, there is a relaxation in the compliance under section 194O subsection 2 when the gross amount of sale or services by an e-commerce participant who is an individual or an HUF does not exceed rupees 5 lakhs and it has furnished the PAN and Aadhaar, then there is no liability to deduct TDS with respect to such gross amount of sale of services. Now the issue arose that for the purpose of computing the threshold, whether the transactions prior to 1st October 2020 will be taken into account or not. Secondly, whether the transactions prior to 1st October 2020 will be liable for the deduction of tax at source, or it is only the transactions which are on or after 1st October 2020. CBDT has clarified the issue and it has stated since the section 194O subsection 2, for the purpose of computing the threshold, talks about the previous year. The previous year began from 1st April 2020. So all the transactions which have taken place from 1st April 2020 will be taken into account for the purpose of computing the threshold. So this is only for the purpose of computing. Now, as far as the applicability of TDS is concerned, CBDT has rightly clarified that the TDS will only be deducted in the transactions which are on or after 1st October 2020, because the TDS obligation has only come into force on 1st October 2020. However, on the aspect of computation of threshold, there is no clarity with respect to the treatment of sales returns, commission charges, convenience fees, etc. Maybe the CBDT in times to come will address this issue, which needs urgent clarification, because if the annual sales, the gross amount of sales is more than 5 lakh, but there is a sales return, or the gross amount includes commission charges, on exclusion of which the gross amount reduces below 5 lakh, then that creates an issue both for the e-commerce participant as well as e-commerce operator. Now, these are the only clarifications which have been issued with respect to the levy of TDS under section 194O through this circular. There are many other issues which can be easily identified in a very plain e-commerce transaction. I am not talking about the transactions which take place over a complex business model. Even a straightforward e-commerce transaction on the platform of Amazon has many issues involved which have been left unaddressed, unfortunately, by this CBDT guideline. There are a few open issues. For example, there is a vagueness regarding the scope of applicability of section 194O insofar as the term facilitated by, which is used in the section, has not been defined under the section. Now, what degree of participation or activity satisfies the test of facilitation has been left to the discretion of the department. There may be cases where online marketplace merely provides a listing to the seller and negotiations happen offline between the buyer and the seller. This would merely be providing a service of listing or would also constitute facilitation. This is an issue which is debatable and required clarity. Secondly, many a times once a product has been received, the same is returned back with a refund claim by the purchaser. There are also cases where the order is booked online and paid for, but the same is cancelled later in a day or two with a similar refund claim. Section 194O or the present guidelines don't clarify the treatment of such adjustments. This will lead to cash flow and working capital management issues for the sellers, as its cash is blocked in the tax which has been deducted in the first instance. Thirdly, section 194O doesn't take into consideration various business models and realities of e-commerce transactions. Most e-commerce operators charge a commission fees, a listing fees, storage fees, etc. from the sellers or the e-commerce participant. Now the issue remains as to whether the gross amount would include commission fees, listing fees, storage fees, etc. This will again impact the cash flow and working capital management of the seller. Not only this, it will also increase the compliance burden on e-commerce operators because they will have to correctly calculate the quantum. Otherwise, it may lead to penal consequences for non-compliance with section 194O. Now let's take a situation which is completely opposite to the above mentioned point. For example, I am taking the example of Book My Show, where a convenience fees is charged by the e-commerce operator from the buyer. So it is not a sale consideration from the e-commerce participant. The e-commerce operator is additionally charging something over and above the sale consideration of e-commerce participant. So would this convenience fee be also included in the gross amount or would it be excluded? If the first interpretation is given effect to, then it will lead to increased tax collection by the department, and hence the department would naturally want to adopt the first interpretation. And this will also reduce the cash flow in the hands of the seller. Now, there is another issue where there is an excessive compliance burden in case of direct transactions between the seller and the buyer. The guidelines unfortunately restrict the clarity only with respect to an insurance agent or an insurance aggregator. The same, in my opinion, should extend to any similar business model where subsequent yearly payments are made directly to the seller. However, the department may contend that these guidelines are only with respect to insurance agents and aggregators, and they are binding on the e-commerce operator, and hence the e-commerce operator cannot extend the benefit to any other business model. So these issues are, as you can see, not restricted only to a plain e-commerce transaction, but are potentially affecting a wide gamut of e-commerce business models. One can take the example of online cab booking, online ticket bookings, online streaming platforms, online marketplace for goods and services, online sale of insurance, online booking and delivery of food and beverages. Now there is also an online consultancy and prescription service platform. So these are only some of the issues which can be identified in a simple transaction, and thus there is a huge scope for other issues that may crop up in a new business model. I have not touched upon those issues which are very apparent because of time constraints and the restriction on clarity given by the guidelines. Considering the impact this provision has all over India in terms of additional compliance burden with probable penal consequences for the e-commerce operators, as well as cash flow and working capital management issues for the sellers, it is in the interest of certainty and fairness that CBDT issues further guidelines to clarify the issues which have been highlighted in the previous slides, and also provide additional clarifications on the issues which have not been touched upon by the circular number 17 of 2020, which has been issued on 29th September 2020. Friends, with this we come to the end of this analysis. In case of any queries, do write in the comments section, or you can directly email to me on the email address provided. I hope that CBDT will address these issues in the times to come, and the industry will also make representations. Having said so, the last minute clarifications provided by the CBDT are a welcome move by the CBDT, which means that they are listening to the issues of the stakeholders and the industry. With this, we come to the end of this analysis. Take care, everyone, and do write in case of any queries.